Good morning, good morning, good morning, my friends. I left the trigger warning up for a little bit longer than I normally do. So you have been warned. This will not be an easy show. These are not easy things to discuss, as if it ever is. Who did I miss? Jules. I was texting with her. There's my girl, True Crime Beat. Joy K. Jules of all trade. I can't wait to hear your opinion on this. Camp made it in. I did see Vicky. There's Avi. Tina King. She said, best part of playing hooky, hanging out with my friends. Are you playing hooky today? Did you call in sick? Say you got a, I can't make it in. Or did you have a vacation day? Hey, Lisa. Trust me, I've been there. Hey, Leanne, Debbie. Hopefully everybody's having a good hump day. You know what hump day means. Are you wearing pink? Or are you pink in spirit? First off, let's tell all of our friends hello and happy hump day.
Oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
It's hump day. And it's strange because we are in January now. There's no holidays coming up, going on, unless you count Valentine's Day. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who all gets really geared up for that anymore? But it's really strange because, like I said, it's back to reality, as they say. Remember that old song? Back to life, back to reality. Yeah. No more days off coming up. You know, we've got all our decorations down and everything. Camp said, I can't come out. I'm sick. Boo, you whore. You read my mind. Good morning, Doozy. That's one of my favorite scenes from the movie. And also, we wear pink on Wednesdays, even if it's just in spirit.
It's adorable. It's so fetch. What is fetch? Oh, it's like slang from England. So if you're from Africa, why are you white? Oh my God, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white. Could you give us some privacy for like 1 second? Yeah, sure. Okay, you should just know that we don't do this a lot, so this is like a really huge deal. We want to invite you to have lunch with us every day for the rest of the week. Oh, it's okay. Coolness. So we'll see you tomorrow. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. Oh my God.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink. You know, only our group here could take an insult from another channel and make a joke out of it and sell merchandise. Hey, it's okay. It's how we roll. Yes, maroon counts. Prissy Missy said, hubby went back to work today. Thank God. I laughed really hard at that when I saw that pop up, Prissy Missy. That's a good one. That's a good one. Let's get to the comments from the last show that we did about Gypsy. And fair warning, which you guys are all cool, not worried about you guys, but you know, sometimes we get some strange ones that come in. That's okay. It takes a while before we decide if they can sit with us or not. A lot of arguments going on around the internet. The good old internet. Big argument is, should Gypsy be released because she testified against the boyfriend, you know, the one that jacks off at McDonald's for 9 hours at a time, due to the ongoing abuse she suffered as a child. Now, she did not kill her mother, but she was definitely in on the plan. And if that is the case, what about other people that have taken the law into their own hands. And the one argument that comes up quite a bit is the Menendez brothers. They went through years of psychological and SA abuse. Should they still be in jail? So we're going to talk about that today. First, let's get to the comments. From our last show about Gypsy Rose, talking about her release, Sonia Rainey said, I too believe she felt she had no other way out. She was so scared of her mom, yet loved her and was still protective of her mom. V. Oakley said, in my opinion, she paid her debt to society and paid well. I think she did more time than she deserved. Now, with Nick, the Hamburglar, she said, I do feel he should have to serve at least 25 years, but not life without parole. Renee said, imagine going through life for 20 years being taught to be right-handed and only draw pictures. Even though you are taught some reading skills, you can't draw the letters because you're not allowed. Now, all of a sudden, circumstances change, and you have to suddenly be left-handed and describe images by writing words. I think that Gypsy was taught to be a pathological liar. And now, all of a sudden, she has a different boss and expected to tell the truth all the time. Breaking old ways of life takes a lot of conscious effort. In my opinion, I don't think she was taught much. She learned to lie for basic survival, even though she is capable of having a higher IQ under better circumstances. Pray for her to do better on her new chances in life. Great comment. Stephanie Weber said, I worked in a hospital years ago where we had a frequent patient. She was a young girl, and I very strongly suspected her mom of Munchausen's by proxy. All the signs were there, and every time the mom didn't have total access, the girl got better. I was a CNA at the time. I told nurses who basically ignored the situation. I mentioned it to a doctor who said there was no proof. I called the house social worker and asked if she could do a report. He said no, but said I could do one. I asked for the form, and he said just go online. There was no help or support, and unfortunately, that's the way things often are. People don't want to put in the effort, I guess. I did file a report, but I left the hospital shortly after, so I don't know if anything happened. Unfortunately, probably not. I think it would take someone putting in continuous effort, which is why Gypsy's mom moved from doctor to doctor. Now think about that. She recognized when she was working at the hospital that this young girl was coming in frequently. And when her mother didn't have full access, she would get better. Mermaid made it in. Mermaid, to what do we owe the honor, girlfriend? How have you been doing? How was your holidays? So yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that Gypsy suffered unimaginable abuse. She was medically abused by her mother. Medically abused by her mother. Then we go to the argument on the good old net. Well, what about the Menendez brothers? Either they are superior actors because both of them gave excruciating testimony on the stand. And some people say, well, they don't want the Menendez brothers released because they spent all of their parents' money afterward. And some people say it's because they're male victims. I don't know, but we're going to have the conversation. Let's do an update on Gypsy real quick. She had to leave the state of Missouri, so she didn't get to go meet Tay-Tay at the Chiefs game. I heard that she was at some movie theater in Illinois. I don't see that it would be that big of a deal for her because, the plan was to go to Louisiana with the husband who does eerily look like Dee Dee. And Daisy eerily looks like Dee Dee. I can't unsee it. But good news, the Chiefs did win on Sunday. So here she is celebrating with the family.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard celebrating her release from prison with a party thrown by her father and stepmother. She's smiling in photos posted to Instagram by her stepsister. Gypsy Rose spent her first night at a hotel with her husband, Ryan Anderson. She posted a first selfie of freedom taken in the hotel room. So, what do we know about Ryan Anderson? He's 37 years old. He's a special ed teacher from Louisiana. He met Gypsy Rose through a prison pen pal program. They were married in 2022, but were not permitted conjugal visits.
Well, I have a feeling that's been taken care of. What would make someone reach out to a prisoner, whether you believe in their innocence or not? There's a man on death row here in Oklahoma, and I think he's on wife number 3. I'm actually friends with her on Facebook. She's a super nice lady, very pretty. The Menendez brothers are married. I believe they have children. We know the West Memphis 3, Damien was married. I'll never understand why people would reach out to somebody in that predicament.
He says he and Gypsy Rose have planned their first real romantic night out. Gypsy's never been on a real date where you go and sit somewhere and eat and go to a movie or do whatever. Gypsy Rose and her previous boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, were convicted of murdering her mother, who pushed Gypsy Rose into a life of misery, convincing everyone the girl suffered from leukemia and muscular dystrophy, even though she was perfectly healthy.
There was a lot of emotional abuse.
The notorious case has been an obsession among true crime fans. In a new 3-part Lifetime documentary, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, is debuting next week. The cameras have been following Gypsy since her release.
We will be watching her as she embarks on her freedom and what choices she's going to make. There's a lot of support for her, and people are cheering her on to encourage her to have the best life that she deserves.
And it seems like she's doing very well. I think her Instagram went from a few thousand followers to like 6 million. Fast. Slim Hauser said Brooks, Cinema Shogun, love his channel by the way, claims Gypsy's been offered a stripping gig. I heard that. I didn't watch his video. Somebody put it in the Crime Lines and Lies Facebook group. They want to call her Tipsy Gypsy. Well, I hope she says no on that gig. She can be an advocate and she doesn't need my permission. Munchausen's by proxy. Educate these doctors, educate the hospital social workers, etc., etc., etc. But you don't need to take your clothes off to do it, Tipsy Gypsy. I have a feeling she's going to say no on that. Who needs dollar bills, y'all, when she's going to have million dollars coming from books and movies? Now, just keep your drawers on. No. All right, so she did recently speak out. This was on the Today Show yesterday. Gypsy Rose speaks out. Some people would call that clickbait. Today's show is clickbaiting us.
Hey everyone, this is Gypsy. I'm finally free.
After 8 years behind bars for her mother's murder, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, now a free woman.
Hey everyone, happy New Year's Eve.
And right back in the spotlight. speaking out for the first time on her newly created social media accounts.
I just want to send a quick video to thank everyone for the massive amount of support that I've been getting on social media. Everyone has been really, really nice.
That massive support earning her 6 million followers on TikTok and close to another 6 million on Instagram in less than a week.
Now, she's going to get money from that TikTok and that Instagram. Don't tell anyone in the true crime community, because they'll start calling her a tragedy pimp. Oh, that Gypsy Rose, she's just a tragedy pimp. Look what she did to her mama. And she got that slow fella locked up in jail for his whole life. She's a tragedy pimp. It's called the internet. Anyone can use it.
Posting her first selfie since out of prison, photos of her wedding ring, kissing her husband, Ryan Anderson, who she married while in prison, and promoting her upcoming Lifetime series and ebook.
It's more of my reflection of everything that I've learned and experienced in the last 8.5 years.
Gypsy Rose, perhaps the most famous victim of what's known as Munchausen by proxy. Authorities say her mom, Dee Dee Blanchard, falsely claimed that Gypsy Rose suffered from leukemia, asthma, and muscular dystrophy, confining her to a wheelchair and subjecting her to multiple unnecessary surgeries over a span of nearly 2 decades.
Things are not always as they appear.
Truer words have not been spoken. I remember when the news clips were coming out locally, because I live outside of Tulsa, and they were even talking about it on our news because, they were found in Wisconsin. There was a few things they talked about, how she was in a wheelchair. And I'm like, well, somebody would have noticed that girl in a wheelchair on the bus. And then a few days later, they show her walking into court and she's fine. When she had her physical at the jail, they said, "You're one of the healthiest people I've ever met." And this is what gets people really heated up. Our friend Jules of All Trade said, as a mom of a child with real medical issues, this story really does heat me up. That's why I'm doing a lot of research before doing my video. You always do. You have a great channel. Great channel. If you don't follow Jules of All Trades, True Crime, get on it. She does great work. Unlike what you get here every morning at 9 a.m. Central Time.
But things took a turn in 2015 when prosecutors say Gypsy Rose and her then boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, hatched a plot to kill her mother.
I played a part in asking him to commit the murder.
The two were arrested and charged with murder, Gypsy Rose taking a plea deal, while Godejohn went to trial and received life in prison. Now, as Gypsy Rose celebrates her freedom, she's revealing her side.
I will finally share my story the way that it should be shared.
Wow. So somehow the doctors in the hospital were performing medical procedures on her. Is there any way that she can sue those doctors? It's one thing if your mother did something, but the doctors went through with the procedures.
The more you learn about this case, you realize just how disturbing it is. This went on for years, right? She had a feeding tube at one point, and you wonder how in the world could the doctors have missed the signs? It really is a symptom of her falling through the cracks, if you think about it. So she could try at this point now civil claims against the doctors, but honestly, Hoda, I don't think it's going to work so long after the fact. There are statute of limitations, there are other evidentiary obstacles. I think it's just a sad, sad tale.
Yeah, it is indeed. All right, Laura Jarrett. Laura, good to see you.
Yeah, and we spoke about that on the last show. Can she civilly sue the doctors for malpractice? I think Slim looked it up and said that the statute in Missouri is 2 years. Well, she was in jail for 8, so that ship has sailed. But there might be something some attorney can do. They always think outside the box when it comes to payday. When there's money on the line and it's a cha-ching payday, those attorneys get real inventive. Okay, now let's get to the Menendez brothers. We're going to come back to Gypsy. because this really sparked my interest. And hang on, this is an open panel. I want to hear everybody's thoughts. Don't be shy. I don't bite. Sometimes I get excited and talk over people. Just tell me to STFU. Just say, Brooks, let me finish my thought. Bonnie's journey said, I know her mom was abusive, but we are only getting her side. There are two sides to every story. Gypsy did keep going along with it, and I believe she is a master manipulator. People that were in jail with her said the same thing, that she manipulated the guards, the other prisoners. Can you trust them? Because they are criminals too. They're locked up for other things. I don't know. You be the judge. Because some people, this is a very divided topic. Some people are like, no, let her have her life. She served her prison sentence when she was with her mother. She's been a prisoner her whole life. Then others are like, too bad, so sad, girlfriend. You premeditated murder. You went on about your merry way. And you got yourself caught with your Facebook posts. Too bad, so sad. Not only did you plan it, you basically told on yourself. It's very divided. It's been a long time since I've seen a case where it's basically 50-50. Now we get to the other argument, which we're not going to argue in here, where people are saying, what about the Menendez brothers? What about the Menendez brothers? Did you not hear their gut-wrenching testimony? Now, a former member of the band Menudo, remember them? It's not Ricky Martin, has come out and said their father AR'd him as well. This might open a new can of worms for the Menendez brothers. I don't know. Ooh, Trixie coming in hot. She said, sorry, not sorry. I'm not Team Gypsy. Don't get old mermaid going. I know the minute someone makes a post that says, don't come after me, but I was like, there goes mermaid. And some people think she's still a danger to society. Now let's get to it. Should the Menendez brothers be released? There is plenty of testimony to back up what they said. Let's get the back story of the crime.
On the north end, and we got a call of a shooting at a residence, and the whole shift showed up. It was dark out. They had the house lights on. The brothers were ordered from the front door to the driveway area where they were told to lay face down, and were searched. And once they were deemed to be not a threat, then we tried to figure out what was going on. People took turns going in to look at the crime scene, which was horrific. I saw what appeared to be the mom on all fours between the couch and the coffee table with her hair slung over in front of her. I saw the father sitting on the couch, slumped back. It looked like they had been repeatedly shot. Shotgun. I've never seen anything like that before. And then I'm back outside dealing with the two brothers. They seemed to be very distraught. As a police officer, you're very compassionate. That was a horrible scene.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. Tammy T said, no. Why did they kill their mom? That was always my argument. I started following this back in the late 80s. You know, People magazine had them on the cover all the time. From what I gathered from many interviews that Leslie Abrams, their attorney, did afterward, it's because their mother knew of the abuse. She turned a blind eye. She didn't help her sons.
Officer Angel learned that the victims were Jose and Kitty Menendez, and it was their sons, 18-year-old Eric and 21-year-old Lyle, who had called 911.
I come home and my mom and dad had this look on their face. And they were just like, John, Eric's parents are dead. I couldn't process it. I could not wrap my mind around what could have happened.
Throughout the house, there were no shotgun rounds, no bloody clothes, no bloody footprints. The detectives conducted a search looking for a shotgun, and we didn't find what we were looking for. We had policemen all over the place trying to find witnesses. They found a girl down the street that said she saw a car pull up and two individuals get out and go to the trunk and then go in the house. There was no evidence that this was a residential robbery, so it was strictly a hit.
It was strictly a hit. Now, they gave themselves an alibi. I believe they went to the movies. They still had their ticket stubs with them and everything. They went in, and their story was they got home, parents are dead. Now, it took a long time to solve this. A long time. And it was through the younger brother, Eric, speaking with a psychiatrist and confessing what him and Lyle did. Well, the psychiatrist had quite the quandary on his hands, quite the problem, because of psychiatrist-patient confidentiality. He couldn't turn it in. So he had his secretary, receptionist, listen in, and she called it in.
Kill Jose, kill Kitty.
After the trial was over, Leslie Abramson and I hugged each other. She thanked all of us, and she invited a lot of us who agreed with her to her home in Hancock Park for dinner. She got Eric on the phone, and we all had a chance to talk to him personally. He thanked me for being supportive, and he was polite. He wasn't rude or anything like that. And Eric said he wasn't as scared in the jail as he was at his home in Beverly Hills.
Okay, now that is very sad to hear. I'm not as scared in jail as I was at my home in Beverly Hills. She is one of the jurors that supported the brothers. And there were several, but majority wins, and majority couldn't get past the fact that they premeditated the murder. And as we know, if you followed the case, we will get to it, they went on quite a spending spree. I'm talking cars, motorcycles, Rolex watches. They were living high on the hog. I posted this on our page, Crime Lines and Lies, on Facebook. If you have time, grab that link and go like the page, please, and get in on the conversation. We also have a group where we've been discussing these things. Angie Baby said Ann Burgess has been on Chris McDonough many times. She did wonderful on the stand explaining their trauma. And she was way ahead of her time. Now, she's no goofball like that Dr. Dorothy Lewis in the Letitia Stout trial. She was really ahead of her time. And I think she was really close to swaying all those jurors.
He was never protected in the home, and he felt like he was more relaxed because he wasn't under pressure.
My name is Mo Angel, and I worked for the Beverly Hills Police Department from 1976 to 1991. I loved everything about the job. I wanted to be a cop ever since I was 12. I grew up in the city of Beverly Hills, went to school there, Beverly Hills High, 90210. Had just a wonderful upbringing there, and I met several Beverly Hills police officers throughout the years and became friendly with them, and that's all I ever wanted to be. It was small. It was a small town police department, especially when I grew up there in the 50s and 60s, and it was unique. I want to say the police officers were really dedicated to protecting the city of Beverly Hills, and I wanted to be part of that. The old saying between the Beverly Hills cops was, nothing ever happens in Beverly Hills until it happens, and then it's usually, oh my.
And it was definitely an oh my, because it was straight, cold-blooded murder. They said this was not a residential robbery, which is what they were expecting because, well, it's in a highfalutin neighborhood in Beverly Hills. Even though that they were watching the brothers spending, it wasn't until the younger brother spoke to his psychiatrist and the receptionist called it in. Well, hey there, Mama Bear. Where you been, you old stranger? I've been trying to get a hold of you. Glad you're here. But other people have come out. There's a new documentary coming out, if it's not already, where another person has spoke out about what their father did to him.
7-year-old murder case is back in the national headlines once again with news of new developments. The Menendez brothers were found guilty of shooting and killing their parents in their mansion in Beverly Hills back in 1996. Now their lawyer is pointing to a new documentary that he says calls for a new look at the evidence. ABC's Jacqueline Lee has details.
A case that captured headlines 3 decades ago, now back in the spotlight. The attorneys for Eric and Lyle Menendez fighting for the brothers' chance at freedom. On the stand, in unforgettable testimony, the Menendez brothers had insisted they shot and killed their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion to stop years of abuse at the hands of their father.
It's heartbreaking to hear that there was another victim of my father.
But now, new allegations in a documentary, Menendez and Menudo, Boys Betrayed, where a former member of the 80s Latin boy band Menudo claims Eric and Lyle's father, Jose Menendez, raped him when he was 13 or 14 years old.
Yo fui violado por el presidente de RCA.
Yes, because their father was the president of RCA. He had a lot of access to, well, young boys. And as we know, on the stand, they each gave haunting testimony about what their father did to them and how their mother wouldn't do anything about it. Some people say because she was scared of him too. I don't know. But now they're wanting a new trial. Do you think since times have changed so much, so much, a lot has gone on since 1989. People look at things differently than they did in 1989. If they had a new trial, do you think they would be released? Do you think they should be released? Again, that is the big topic of conversation around Al Gore's internet, because people are saying, well, now hold on. Hold the phone. If Gypsy is out, she participated in the premeditated murder of her mother, who abused her entire life, abused her medically, then what about the Menendez brothers? Katie said, no, they need to stay. They need to stay in there. They need to stay in. V. Oakley said, maybe if they're rehabilitated. Jessie Lynn, I've missed you, Jessie. She said, yes and yes. Do we want a society where people can just kill someone, whether it's abuse or not, and then get out of jail? That's another question.
If the testimony of this new alleged victim who's come forth with these sexual assault allegations, if that's allowed into trial, that is absolutely going to bolster and strengthen the defense of the Menendez brothers.
Can you answer the question?
Yes,
Okay, is you telling Lyle what?
my dad had been molesting me.
Prosecutors emphatically rejected their claims of abuse, arguing that their father, a prominent record executive, was not the kind of man who would be abusing his sons, telling the jury their cousin, who corroborated their claims, was lying in no uncertain terms. But on Wednesday, attorneys for the Menendez brothers filed a writ of habeas corpus in a Los Angeles court, saying that this new evidence by the Menudo band member, along with a resurfaced letter written by Eric Menendez to his cousin 8 months before the murders, backs up their claims of abuse. In that letter, Eric writes, "It's still happening, but it's worse for me now. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in."
The state based their case on the idea that this abuse was not happening, therefore there was no justification.
In the filing, attorney Mark Garrigus asks the court to either vacate the brothers' conviction and life sentences or grant a new trial.
The letter gives the brothers one of their best chances for ever being released that I've seen. And we're very hopeful.
Jacqueline Lee, ABC News, New York.
Now they have Mark Garagos. Did Leslie Abrams retire? I don't know. It's been a long time, but they have Mark Garagos. I do chuckle when he's on News Nation and Jennifer Coffindaffer is trying to pick his brain and he looks at her like she's got a dick growing out of her head. And then he goes, oh, that's just her nose. She's just really that dumb. It is quite comical when he is put on a panel with old Coffindaffer. Mermaid has a great point. She says, how do you make it stop if your parents are so prominent? That was one of the arguments. Nobody's going to believe him. Hell, nobody believed the Menudo boy. He didn't just come out with this claim. They just turned the other way. Go back to singing. Take your English classes. Don't worry about it. My goodness. All right, in their own words, this is why the Menendez brothers say they did what they did.
The infamous Menendez brothers, who together murdered their parents in their lavish Beverly Hills mansion 27 years ago, where they spoiled rich kids run amok or enraged victims of sexual abuse. We're about to hear from witnesses the convicting jury never saw or heard almost 3 decades later. Are we finally getting the full story? We warn you, some of the language you're about to hear is extremely graphic.
I am the kid that did kill his parents, and no river of tears has changed that.
Tonight, Lyle Menendez speaking publicly from prison in a rare interview 27 years after he and his brother Eric brutally murdered their parents.
It's shocking to think about that happened, and I could have been involved in taking anyone's life and my parents' life. It's still jarring. It seems unimaginable.
Okay, one of the arguments is Lyle was in college. He's out of the house. The mom was filling out college applications for Eric, so he was on his way out. They said, why pick that time? What was going on? You know, you're on your way to adulthood. That was one of the arguments that one of the jurors came out with. They just said, I can't fathom it. I feel horrible for what they went through, but it seems like they were on the other side of it. Yes, they could have called the police. Yes, they could have done this. They could have done that. Would the police have done anything? I don't know, because again, their father was very prominent and they had one of the biggest mansions in Beverly Hills.
Because this seems so far removed from who I am and who I was.
The glow of innocence once surrounding the Menendez brothers is now shadowed by charges of murder.
To me, it was like a nightmare, like a movie, like it couldn't be reality.
Prosecutors say greed drove the boys to shooting their parents to death last August.
One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. 2 kids killing the parents is a bad family.
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
I know.
A family saddled with secrets and lies that
Good old Barbara Wawa, may she rest in peace. She knew how to really put people on the spot. You were a normal kid that killed your parents. Yeah, I know. Jules of All Trades says, I can see that argument, but he was hurting other people too, not just his 2 sons. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. And that's okay. That's why I love having these conversations with you guys, because we bounce off of each other. And then, of course, at the end, we're still friends either way. JM, you said it. I'm sure they were full of resentment. Jessie Lynn said earlier in chat, you never know what's going to make someone snap. When did the abuse end?
exploded with this 911 call.
What's the problem? What's the problem? I'm sorry, kill my parents. Pardon me? What?
Tonight, the family, friends, and reporters who watched it all unfold.
It's not supposed to happen in Beverly Hills. A movie executive and his wife were brutally slain in their $1 million mansion.
They had been the picture-perfect family.
They had achieved the American dream. They were living in the mansion in Beverly Hills. They were living behind the gate. So on the outside, to most people, this was the perfect all-American family.
People assume that if you have money, you have no problems. And you're certainly not going to do anything like kill your parents because you got it made. And it turns out that rich people have dysfunctional families just as much as poor people.
The brothers who were thought to have it all, at times acting out, even going as far as robbing houses until they were caught.
Joe, when he found out that the children had been arrested, the main message was, how stupid of you to get caught. You're like sheep that follow. You're not leaders.
Describe your relationship with your father.
Brutal. Painful. Torturous. And yet I admired him because he was so strong, and he was everything that success was.
I think the Menendez brothers were close because they were fighting the common enemy, which was their father. He believed that life is like war and that anything you do to achieve your end is fine, including, it turns out, killing your parents.
Were they shot? Yes. They were shot? Yes. What happened? What happened? Who was the person that was shot?
Okay, what do you think about the 911 call? Many say it's way too scripted for them. Well, it has to be scripted because they know what they did. They know they premeditated this. They know they did. Tara is coming in with great comments today. She said, when Lyle demanded the abuse stop and threatened to tell authorities, his father, Jose, replied, we all make choices in our lives. Eric made his. You made yours, he testified. I thought we were in danger, he said.
My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? My mom and my dad. Okay.
So you called the police, but at that point, you had already decided
We had decided not
you weren't
to.
going to say anything.
We had decided that our feeling was not, we'll just explain what happened and it'll be okay. We were very stunned, and we felt that we would go to jail, obviously, and it was a selfish reason to just not want to have to go through that.
As we walked in the front door, it was just eerily quiet. In the back of the foyer was this library family room, which is where the murder occurred. Kitty was wearing white. She was covered in blood. Jose had a shotgun blast to the back of his head, blood everywhere. There was brain matter on the ceiling, on the windows. It was really horrendous.
The son said they discovered the bodies when they arrived home several hours later.
We didn't have an alibi. All we did was say we were at the movies.
But they never checked you for gunpowder. You did fool the police.
That day they didn't.
For days, theories circulated the airwaves.
Homicide detectives say it could have been a mob hit, contract killings.
But slowly, tantalizing tips began to trickle in.
And ABC News has learned that two 12-gauge shotguns were purchased at this sporting goods store in San Diego on August 18th.
This time, evidence pointing to the Menendez brothers.
The glow of innocence once surrounding the Menendez brothers is now shadowed by charges of murder.
When I first saw Eric Menendez walk into the courtroom, my blood went cold because I had never seen someone who had murdered his parents before.
Now, after you entered the den,
I was just firing as I went into the room. I just started firing.
in what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
There is no issue as to who killed Jose and Mary Louise Menendez. Why they were killed is what the focus of all of our evidence will be on.
Hang on.
The room, I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
There is no issue as to who killed Jose and Mary Louise Menendez. Why?
Do you think a lot of the sympathy is because both brothers were in on it? Do you think it hurt their case that they went on the very lavish spending spree after? And also, I don't want to get in anybody's business. Did anyone else have that perm back in the 80s? I showed you my senior picture the other day. Of course, that was early 90s. My mother loved putting those lilt perms in me. I have to say, she's got some locks going on. Did anybody else have these perms? This took a lot of Aquanet to keep that going, especially in that humidity. Avi said, I'm thinking the spending spree hurt their case. I think that did it as well. Because when they started showing the jury Rolexes, lavish trips, cars, I think they had a crotch rocket. They had a lot going on.
Why they were killed is what the focus of all of our evidence will be on.
Trials are storytelling competitions.
ABC's Terry Moran, a self-described rookie reporter at the time, covered the case extensively for Court TV.
So whoever tells the better story in a trial that's anchored in the facts as they come out.
Man, this is a blast from the past. Terry Moran was the JLR of the news. He started using the internet around the time Matt Drudge did. He was everywhere. Everywhere. Gina, I never understand why the mothers let the abuse continue. So sad. Exactly. Just last week, we had Doris on the show talking about the people she saved in Oklahoma City. The mother is in jail because she allowed the abuse. She allowed the abuse.
That's who's going to persuade the jury.
The prosecution was completely focused on the idea that Eric and Lyle Menendez were greedy rich kids that had killed their parents because they were in a hurry to inherit their money.
In the days after the murder, an inexplicable shopping spree by the brothers.
Why did you need to buy a Rolex watch 4 days after your parents were killed?
I didn't need to.
They made the case that the brothers were afraid of being cut out of their parents' will. But the story took a turn when the defense revealed an alleged deep-rooted family secret.
He killed his parents because he could no longer endure their abuse and had to stop it.
I think there was a near universal sense that this was going to be a sham defense and that it was going to be a joke. And then they got on the witness stand.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling Lyle that,
You telling Lyle what? Your Honor, can I ask a leading question?
if you don't ask my dad.
Wait 1 second, Mr. Hernandez. Okay, let me ask.
No, he was in the process of answering, so there's no need to ask him.
Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, it was you telling Lyle what?
My dad had been molesting me.
You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. And that's when I thought, oh darn, I'm in trouble.
When Eric Menendez was 10 years old, he told his cousin Andy Cano that he'd been sexually molested by his father.
Well, he told me his father was massaging his.
He used that word?
Yes, he did. He
Yeah.
wanted to know that if this happened to every kid. I do remember very specifically was him asking me to make a promise to him never to reveal that to anybody.
And between the ages of 6 and 8, did your father have sexual contact with you?
Yes.
And how did it start?
We would have these talks, and he would show me, and he would fondle me, and he would ask me to do the same with him, and I would touch him, and we would undress.
When Lyle appeared, it was a turning point because now you were hearing a whole different side of the story and details that no one had ever really heard before.
We would be in the bathroom. He would put me on my knees, and he would guide me, all my movements, and I would have oral sex with him.
The days that Lyle and Eric Menendez testified to their claims of.
Okay, let's take a breather. This is a lot to think about. This is a lot to unpack. One comment I saw on a thread, a woman who, I assume it's a woman, judging by the name, said, I don't know from my history what is worse, the abuser or the one that does nothing about the abuse. She said, I don't know which one to hate the most. Think about that. What a profound statement. And it seemed to me that she was talking out of personal experience. I don't know who to hate worse, the abuser or the one that did nothing. Jules said, I feel that statement. Nana Banana said equal. Connie's coming in with the comments. She said, parents shouldn't abuse, but doesn't give the right to kill. Chloe said, especially their own mother. I stopped in my tracks when I read that. I read articles. I skim through articles, but I'm always there for the comments. And when I read that, I had to read it several times to let it get in my brain. I'm like, wow. Who do you hate more? The physical abuser or the mental abuse of knowing that there was an adult, particularly your own mother, that did nothing to stop it?
Sexual abuse are among the most unforgettable days I've ever had as a journalist. To this day, my heart catches when I think about that.
What else did he do to you?
He used objects,
What kind of objects?
a toothbrush, and some sort of shaving utensil brush.
And did he try to anally penetrate you with something else?
Who did?
And what was it?
He raped me.
There was a level of detail. It wasn't just explicit. It was accidental. In other words, there are things that people remember from real life that you almost wouldn't kind of make up.
Did you tell your brother? Did you do something to your brother?
Yes.
What did you do to your brother?
I took him out to the woods. Whenever I felt, I don't know, I took him out sometimes, and I took a toothbrush also, and I played with Eric in the same way.
Okay, another breather because that's a lot to take in. Lyle also became an abuser. Connie said, but was mom being abused also? I have conflicting statements on this. I will say this. Even in the 80s, divorce was pretty damn popular in Beverly Hills. This man was worth millions. Millions. She could have divorced him so fast. Alimony, child support, you name it, and lived comfortably. So my question for Kitty Menendez, if she was here, why didn't you just divorce the bastard?
And I'm sorry.
And he says it with such shame. But what is even more convincing, and I was sitting about 10 feet from Eric, is I saw this vein start popping out of his forehead as he hears his brother apologizing, as their own secret, horrible sordidness comes out into public on television. That emotion, that's what a victim, not an actor, that's what a victim looks like.
I remember thinking he's either the best actor in the world or this is a true story.
It became like a Rorschach test. You looked at Lyle Menendez, Eric Menendez, you either saw cynical, sinister, vicious killers, or you saw victims.
Jurors are unable to reach a verdict, hopelessly deadlocked.
Both brothers' trials ended in hung juries. Shortly after America was riveted by that other trial of the century, the second Menendez trials had no cameras in the courtroom. Lyle didn't even take the stand, limiting testimonies about the alleged sexual abuse. The verdict?
Lyle and Eric Menendez have been found guilty of murdering their parents. It took a second trial for the two to be convicted of murder in the first degree.
What went through your minds when you heard that verdict?
That I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison.
When we come back, the Menendez brothers find love behind bars.
If it wasn't for the OJ trial, people would have had more fair juries. Let me put it that way. Because even after the OJ trial, when they had the riots in LA, they found the people that almost bricked to death Reginald Denny. They found them not guilty. They had them on camera pulling him out of the truck and beating him with a brick. They said they didn't want another riot. The OJ trial really messed up justice in a lot of areas, not just in Southern California. Okay, Lyle spoke out to Megyn Kelly about the spending spree. Now, I don't know how the defense didn't get the spending spree thrown out. I'm no attorney, but that would be something that you think that they would really have filed motion after motion after motion after motion to keep it out. Because I think that really swayed the ones that were on the fence. Because remember, at the second trial, testimony was limited. They were off of the OJ trial where he was found not guilty, even though there was mountains of evidence against what OJ did. Not you, OJ, another OJ. And I really think the Rolex watch 4 days later really swayed him. That's just my opinion. Tell me what you think.
50 with more on something we first brought you on Wednesday. Lyle Menendez breaking his silence about the murder of his parents.
He and his brother Eric were convicted of that crime. They were sentenced to life in prison back in 1996. Well, Lyle spoke with Megyn Kelly by phone from behind bars, a rare interview. And on Wednesday afternoon, she spoke to him again. She asked him more about his relationship with his mother.
You still feel love for her?
You know, I love my mother, and so I still cry over my mother. You know, and
Why? What
and
are the
I
tears
don't
for?
forgive her.
What are the tears for?
I think the tears are for just that her life ended and our lives essentially ended all because of this fateful decision. There had to be a series of decisions she made of not to tell what was happening.
And that's a very strong statement he made from behind bars. And let's face it, he has a lot of time to think about it. Now, he calls it a fateful decision. I would think at the ages they were, they could fight him off. But we talked about Gypsy Rose. She had access to a phone. She had access to a laptop. There were people that lived around. She could have ran out of the house and said, look, I can walk. There's nothing wrong with me. So when is it okay? Obviously, if you're fighting for your own life, it's definitely okay. If you're protecting your children, it's definitely okay. Let's look at what he says. There had to be a series of decisions she made of not to tell what was happening. What mother would not use every instinct in their body? We already know the father is a dirty bastard. There's more than just Lyle and Eric that have talked about his abuse. But what mother would not use every maternal instinct in her body to protect her children? I think about a talk show I watched years ago, and a woman stood up, she took the microphone. Now we call it grabbing the link. And she said on her way home, she had her daughter, and her daughter told her that her father had been essaying her. She gulped. She was holding back tears. She pulled in the driveway, put it in reverse, and said, we never went back. The host of the show said, every child should have a mother like you. No questions, no doubts, no nothing. I put it in reverse and we never went back.
What kind of mother lets it happen?
Well, another question that people have asked, why did the brothers go on that big spending spree in the days after the murders? Take a listen.
I mean, obviously your parents had money and they spent it on you and your brother. But the thing that got everyone's attention was the spending spree after they died. You know, the Rolexes and the Porsche and the tennis coats.
I get it, yeah.
So explain that? Why did you guys go on that spending spree?
I think it's characterized as a spending spree because they condense it into how much money did you spend after your parents died. But at the trial, it was very clear that this was a family that sort of just spent money like water before. I had spent a huge amount of money before, as all the family members did. We didn't really think about money. It was a wealthy family.
Okay, I know some people are not going to buy this, but it actually makes sense to me. They were spending tons of money before. It was nothing to go drop big money at Cartier for a Rolex. It was nothing for Kitty to say, I can't take that luggage to Malibu because people have already seen me with that luggage. I have to go get all new luggage. So when he said, we were already spending tons of money, that actually does make a little bit of sense to me.
That spent money on, a lot of things. So money corrupts the narrative of it. And it just, there's a sense that, okay, wealth means greed, and that must always be the motive for everything. And it's not.
Well, if you want, you can see more of that new interview. This is a new interview with Lyle Menendez. It's coming up in a little bit on Megyn Kelly Today.
All right, we've got a lot more coming up, including...
Well, we're good on that for now. That's his explanation for the spending spree. Do you buy it, or do you think the motive was to go on the spending spree? Dad was getting rough with him, and I don't mean in that way, saying, no, gravy train is shut down. You're grown men now. Get a job, get out of college, and then you have to learn how to manage your own money. Dad's money is not your money anymore. Do you think that was the motive, or was it truly the SA? There was a lot of doubt about the SA story. I personally bought it. I did. And I still do, especially with other people coming out who had been silenced for years, saying that the father did the same thing to them. So now let's get to Love Behind Bars. Evil Exists put this out yesterday. A lot of people are wondering about Gypsy's husband. Gypsy's husband. Of course, we've seen the pictures where they're like, I can't unsee it. Her husband looks like Dee Dee. A lot of questions about this guy. My question is for basically anyone who marries someone who's in prison. Even if you're allowed conjugal visits, how sexy could that really be? Unless, I guess, you're into stuff like that. I don't know. They weren't allowed conjugal visits in Missouri. Missouri doesn't allow them. But obviously, the Menendez brothers have been allowed conjugal visits because I know at least one of them has children.
Finally free. Whether you agree with it or not, she is now a free woman and married. It seems as though she already had a plan ready to go once she was out, a plan to make money and enjoy her life with her husband. Gypsy got married last year while she was in prison, and not everyone is happy about her husband. Some are convinced that he is a walking red flag, just here for the attention and fame that comes with Gypsy being a free woman. Upon Gypsy's release from prison, her husband fetched her with the car number plate Hitman, which is a tribute to a wrestler. He is obviously a wrestling fan. He also brought his own cameraman to video her release. I find that highly odd too. He took her to Walmart, and she got some new shoes. Gypsy has been very active on social media since her release. She posted new videos on Instagram, thanking everyone for their support.
Well, it wasn't a Walmart. It was just a shoe store in a shopping center. Quick poll. Do you think that Gypsy's husband, and you're going to hear this question again, do you think that he truly fell head over heels for Gypsy during the prison pen pal program? Or do you believe that the fame and the money that he knew was going to be coming at the end, he knew there was going to be a payday? Do you think that he married her out of love or greed?
She also started a TikTok account, and probably has plans to become a big-time celebrity. This is another reason why many believe her husband is along for the ride. He knew that as soon as Gypsy is released, she would be famous. She has a series coming out, which I believe she got a lot of money for. She also has an ebook. Just a few months ago, Gypsy's husband, Ryan, started his own Instagram and posts all about Gypsy too, and her book, her series, etc. It seems like Gypsy's dad is pleased with the marriage. Ryan posted a picture of him with his in-laws, as well as a couple of pictures with Gypsy, while she was still in prison. Ryan's Instagram comments are not very welcoming, as many accuse him of being in it for the fame or money. Some are saying the opposite, that he may be manipulated by her, and he will be her next victim. What do you guys think? Drop your thoughts down below.
And that's another one. They're saying that she is such a good manipulator that through these letters and phone calls, she manipulated him. I don't know anything about the old boy. I know that he's a teacher, so I mean, he has an education. Do you think he will be her next victim? Do you think that she has manipulated him, or do you think it's the other way around? It's always a wonder to me, as big as the planet is, how people find each other. I say that all the time about Don and Candace Wells. I'm like, out of all the people on the planet, how can these two get together? V. Oakley said this is a train wreck, in my opinion. Extra AF said, I heard they were in Lake Charles. I heard that too. Are you going to go visit Extra AF? Ask them to come on the show. Now we get to the Menendez brothers getting married. Eric Menendez became a husband and a father while in prison.
Rolling up in the north end, and we got a call.
And they are happily married. Nana said she had a daughter before. Okay. All right. Because if she says there's no conjugal visits, but she says they have a child together, I took it literally, biologically. I do remember that now. She does, and she takes her daughter to see him in prison. Okay. This is her child from another marriage. Yes. Thank you. Woo! That's a lot to remember. That's a lot to remember. Britt goes, I was gonna say. I know, me too. So she's his stepdaughter. We'll talk about clickbait. They said how he became a father in jail. Now, I personally don't think she should be taking her daughter, who I'm sure is a grown woman now, to the prison. I just don't think kids need to go to the jail to see dad or grandpa or grandma or mom. That is just my opinion. That is just my opinion. So before we make our determination, let's look at Eric Menendez's testimony from, and it is very graphic. Very graphic. So buckle up.
You said at some point your father had anal sex with you. Is that right?
Yes.
And how old do you believe you were when that happened?
I was in 6th grade. I guess I'm pretty sure I was 12.
And was that within a year of the episode you previously described at 11?
Yes.
Now, you've mentioned earlier that he had made some efforts to accomplish anal intercourse with you that had been unsuccessful because it hurt you,
Yes.
and therefore he had stopped.
Yes.
And that was before the incident when you were 11, when he was violent. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, when you were 12, do you recall the day that he succeeded?
Yes.
And was that a gentle process or not?
No, not at all.
What was it, Mr. Menendez?
It was very, very painful.
And do you know if on that occasion anyone else was in the home besides yourself and your father?
No, I was alone in the house with my dad.
Now, was there a part of your bed that was removable?
Yes.
And what was that part?
It was a wooden slat that there were many of them under my bed, but he had taken one off and left it off.
He being whom?
My father.
And when had he done that, removed one and left it off?
Early on.
I don't know what that means.
Early on when I guess I was, before anything bad started to happen. It must have been
Before you
9,
were 11?
10. Yes.
But you were living in Pennington?
Yes.
And what would he do with the slat that he took off from the bed?
He would wedge it underneath the door, under the doorknob, and the carpet.
Okay, so that's a lot of detail. That's a lot of detail. He took the slat off the bed and he would wedge it so he couldn't get out and nobody could come in. Now, he describes the incredible pain. Safe to say there were injuries. Safe to say his mother did nothing about this.
So that no one could open the door from the outside?
Yes.
And I think you've already said your mother never came to the door anyway.
No.
So did you have in mind at the time who that slat was supposed to keep out?
Well, I thought it was to keep out anyone from coming in the room. It just happened that no one came to the room ever, but I didn't know.
Who were the candidates? Who were the other people who lived in this house?
My mother and my brother, and at some time Diane.
When Diane lived with you?
Yes.
Now, on this particular occasion, nobody else is home?
No.
No?
No one else is home.
Okay. And do you recall basically what happened?
Yes.
Basically what happened?
My dad came in and told me to take off my clothes and to kneel on the bed. And he closed the blinds and he put the slat underneath the door like he always did. And he told me to bend over the footboard.
This bed had a footboard and a headboard?
Yes.
And did you know what it meant to be told to bend over the footboard?
Yes.
He had had you do that before?
Yes. That's when he tried to have sex with me but wasn't able to.
And did your father put anything on you or ask you to put anything on you?
This time he just did it himself. Usually he told me to.
What was it that was put on you?
He had a Vaseline jar.
And in the past, when he had tried to do this, he had had you put the Vaseline on?
Yes, he put some on himself, and he had me put them on myself.
On this occasion, he put it on you?
Yes.
And what happened?
And he lined himself up and he started going into me like he had always done, but this time he was going in too far. And I said, "Dad, please stop." And I said, "Dad, you're hurting me." And he just kept on going further. At one point, I just started screaming and I started saying, "Stop, it hurts, it hurts." And he just went all the way in.
And did that hurt?
Yes.
And how did you react to that pain?
I just sort of died off. I didn't, I stopped screaming and I just sort of left myself.
You left yourself?
I just pretended that it wasn't happening. I pretended that the pain wasn't happening and I just went away in my mind. It was too painful.
When it was over, did you cry?
I was crying during it.
Okay. And after it was over, were you still crying?
Yes.
And did your father say anything to you at that time?
Yeah, he had a towel on the bed, and he put the towel on the bed, and he had me sit on the towel so that I wouldn't get anything on the bed. And he said very calmly, and looked at me, and told me to look him in the eyes, and he said, "Next time you ever scream or yell, I'm going to beat you so bad you'll never be able to scream or yell again."
Do you, did it occur to you, did something occur to you about this episode concerning why he had gone ahead when you were in pain?
Yes.
What was that?
It was because when I had screamed or yelled or cried out before, he had told me that if I ever did that, he was going to go all the way inside of me.
That was on a previous occasion when he was trying to do this?
Yes.
So he kept his word.
Yes.
Did you believe, Mr. Menendez, as you were growing up, that your father was a person who would make good on his threats?
Oh, yes.
Now, did your father, in this particular conversation after this episode, strike it? Your father said to you that if you scream again, he'll make sure he hits you hard enough that you won't be able to cry or scream again?
Yes.
And did he explain to you whose fault that would be?
Yes, he asked me whose fault it would be. He asked me if I understood, and I said yes. And he said, "So if I ever do that, do you understand whose fault it'll be, or do you know why it will happen?" And I said yes.
Okay. And whose fault would it be?
He made it very clear that it would be my fault, and I understood that it would.
What did you do, if anything, after this episode? Did your father leave after he had told you it would be your fault?
Yes, he left and he closed the door.
And when he told you this about whose fault it would be, what kind of mood was he in?
He was in a very stern, very serious, very strong mood.
And what did you do after he had left?
I sort of waited outside the door in my bedroom, listening to see where he had gone, and then just went to my bathroom and got in the tub.
Took a bath?
I took a hot bath and just promised myself to do whatever he wanted, never to scream, never to yell, never to cry. Just do what he wanted when it happened.
Now, over the preceding couple of years, talking about now you're 12 when this happened, is that right?
Yes.
Over the previous couple of years, had, in the incidents with your father, had the talking stopped?
Oh, yes. No, he told me that he...
This comment right here. Thank you, Britt. And we have talked about this many times on the channel. We spoke about the social worker in Ohio that was essaying a 14-year-old. And in the comments, not in our comments, but news articles about it, there was a lot of men playing the old attaboy, attaboy, attaboy. And I said, what's up with the double standard? Britt, you're right. Nowadays, it is understood that men get abused too. Back in the day, if some premenstrual big old bitch started beating up on her man, kind of like Andrew Hiltz and his lover, police would show up and laugh. Okay, you can't take her on? You can't put her in her place? You can't take her to the woodshed? But now we understand that abuse does not discriminate. It's not about money. It's not about social standing. It's not even about drugs, alcohol, and all the things they try to lump in with it. Tamara said, young males can be abused in a household, same as young females. Fact. Sarah Boone hurt her man. She certainly did. She assaulted him with a bag of potatoes at the Publix. And she zipped him up in a suitcase and made fun of him as he was dying.
He didn't want me to say a word when he spoke, and he talked about silence. When he talked, he would talk, but he would never want me to say a word unless he spoke to me. And when he talked, he would give me lectures about silence, about the Romans, about the Greeks. He would lecture me about different things.
During the sex or during the visits that included sex? Is that
Either
what you
while I was getting dressed or while I was undressing. Sometimes in the middle, but usually not.
And were you allowed to talk?
No, not unless I was asked a question.
And did silence become the pattern?
Yes, he told me all about silence.
What about silence, Mr. Menendez? What did he tell you?
He told me that silence was the greatest thing that man had. He said that it was the greatest power that anyone could achieve, and that with silence you could control anyone.
And was there a time then when the sexual episodes with your father were totally and completely silent?
Yes.
When he would say nothing whatsoever?
Yes, then it would be silent.
And you would say nothing whatsoever?
Yes.
Now, was there a time when the sexual incidents that you have called nice sex began?
I never appreciated Leslie's line of questioning. Again, this was a different time. This was a different time, 30 years ago or more. There's no such thing as nice sex when you're a father with your young son. I think she was trying to dumb it down for the jury, is what I think. That's my opinion. So I can't see the poll. Where are we at? Do you see a difference between Gypsy and the Menendez brothers? Should the Menendez brothers be out? Pat K's taking a break. Brett said not really. So you're saying that you don't see a difference between the two cases? Or you're saying not really, they shouldn't be out? I got to say I'm on the fence with this one. I don't know, because I mean, we have laws in this country and murder is murder. We can't have a safe society if, especially with all the communication that we have in this world, now, had Eric been 11 and killed his father, I think it would be different. We're talking about 2 cases of premeditated murder. We have 1 girl out, 2 still in. Chloe Jade said yes, 62% on let Menendez out. Okay. All right. I love you guys weighing in. I love your comments. I love you being here because I know this is a very weighted topic. And this early in the morning with no champagne in our orange juice, it's a lot to take in. Angela Halo said it's a tough, slippery slope. Mama B said if it was done during the act of abuse, I think I would feel different. 2 Boston moms said on the fence. Our girl Annie Rundown is back. I've missed you. She said, I need my wine. Tony's on the fence with both. She's on the fence with both of them. Debbie, our birthday girl from yesterday, said, I don't know how to vote. It was cold-blooded murder. Do we blame them? No, but it doesn't make it right. A lot to think about. And if you guys want to continue this conversation, you let me know. It takes me 2 seconds to get a show together. Well, it takes me a lot longer than that. I'm not that quick of a wit. But I want to say thank you very much for you guys for being here because I really wanted to have this discussion with you. And as always, you guys have impressed the hell out of me. Because instead of having a dumpster fire and everybody fighting over their opinion, as usual, you guys had a conversation, said your piece, and like I said at the end of the show, we're still friends. Thank you very much for being here. We have a lot of long-term members. I saw all of that. Thank you so much for your support of the channel. Lord knows we need it. The algorithm doesn't really like us that much. Oh, Amy Terry. Don Wells isn't in jail, but those boys are. Marinate on that. Marinate on that. Don Wells isn't in jail, but those boys are. Well, you blew it out of the water with that comment, Amy Terry, and you guys did too, for coming in and having a great conversation and always keeping it classy, keeping it fun, keeping it light, and, as I say every day, being the best chat and best community on YouTube. Thank you for the super sticker, Mirror Camp. Love you. Oh, what a cool avatar. What kind of hat do you have on? You look very sporty. What a great picture. I love it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Get ready. It's going to be another big one.